Chapter 1 Heralds of Conquest. Anshar, the heavenly realm, the world of Levite. Two white-haired beings stand guard in front of a large stone door. While they resemble men, they're not. The beings are members of the Yazata, specifically the Seraphim warrior caste. The Yazata are the basis of mankind's depictions of angels in mythology and religion. Taller than most humans, averaging 6'8" to 7 feet tall. They're built with lean muscle, but possess strength that far surpasses that of a human. Their hair ranges from silver white to a pale ashy blonde. Shimmering like jewels, their irises are various hues of blue, green, or red. With the exception of their head, their bodies are hairless, and they have no facial hair. Were they to be stripped of their armor, one would also find them to be without gender. A brilliant radiance surrounds them, a white-yellow glow that blurs their features to all but other Yazata. Another Yazata approaches them, wearing the gold-plated armor indicative of Seraphim. Unlike other Yazata, the Seraphim are required to maintain at their hip a long sword fashioned of diamond and steel, and a golden chakram, a sharpened and double-edged discus marked with the glyph-like symbols of their language. A red sash tied around the approaching Seraphim's left arm marks him as a captain, and the symbol of two joined crescents drawn upon it further identifies him as a member of the 8th Choir. "Blessed day, Captain," greets one of the guards. "What can we do for you?" "I have come to request entry to the Heirloom Archives." The Yazata Seraphim, called Cedrion, half bows, trying to hide a devilish grin. "Do you have your access papers?" the guard routinely asks, having no suspicions aroused. Cedrion reaches down to produce the papers, but instead grasps his chakram and quickly slashes it across the throat of the guard. The guard staggers back as his neck splits open and his head falls back, held on by only a few tiny fibers. A bright light explodes from his body, leaving a motionless heap on the ground. "Traitor!" the other guard screams, drawing his sword. Cedrion cuts his opponent's sword hand at the wrist with his chakram and thrusts his diamond blade deep into his chest. The sword slides easily through the golden armor and into the Yazata's flesh despite wearing presumed impenetrable armor. The guard coughs, blood running from the corners of his mouth. His eyes flicker with confusion. "My sword is unlike yours. It was a gift from the Devilnay, and fashioned specifically to cut through our armor." Cedrion steps over the corpses and approaches the stone doors. All buildings in Anshar were cut from singular blocks of enormous crystal geodes by the first craftsmen of their ancient cities, tens of thousands of years before. Cedrion bends down, picking up a small key from one of the bodies, and uses it to open up the doors into the archives. The Heirloom Archives are filled with millions of scrolls, tablets, and books, gathered from many different worlds, times, and cultures. An intellectual elite class, the Heirloom are called the Keepers of Truth. Comprising the 2nd Choir, they're symbolized by the Tree of Knowledge. They're tasked with gathering together and protecting all forms of information, and are generally neutral when it comes to the concepts of good and evil. The Heirloom are scribes, not warriors. They are easily struck down by the experienced Seraphim, who walks with purpose, heading directly for a specific row of tomes. The majority of the Heirloom cower in fear beneath tables, rather than confront one of the elite Seraphim. "Tell me, where may I find the Book of the Black Earth?" Cedrion commands, grabbing an Heirloom by the throat. The Yazata scribe shakes his head in defiance, and Cedrion plunges his sword deep into his stomach before tossing the body aside. "Do not feign bravery. You are librarians, not warriors. Where is the book? An Aralem finally points to an area in the southwestern section of the archives. Cedrion searches the shelves before grabbing a thick book bound in a leather-like material, which is the dried hide of the Dahu, a large elk-like animal native to several of the Anshar worlds. He grins, holding the book of the Black Earth. "You cannot take that," shouts Durachiel, steward of the archives. "No records must ever leave this building. They cannot risk being seen by mortals." "Mortals will see this book, and it is I who shall show it to them." Cedrion smiles, holding his blade towards Durachiel in defiance. "And they will use the knowledge they receive to destroy themselves." With a quick slash, Durachiel is cut down, and Cedrion leaves the archives with the book in tow. Using the Yazatan ability of Shinkon Ito teleportation, he leaves the world of Leviite and descends to the Kishar realm of the mortal beings. Kishar, the mortal realm, world of Earth, city of Katal-Takuk, circa 8000 BC. A bronze-skinned man with light brown hair in his mid-20s kicks open the door to a house to find his kinsman Enkidu of the Hyalura tribe in bed with a young woman. The woman has olive skin like them, but her hair is long and so black that it almost shines blue. "Cousin, how could you?" shouts a Yasion of the Hyalura tribe. "What do you mean?" asks Enkidu, standing up and pulling his breeches on. "He did not know," says the girl, Taraxime of the clan Erade, from the city of Dwarka, covering herself up with a wool blanket. "Know what?" Enkidu asks in confusion, looking back and forth between them. "Yasion is my betrothed," she whispers. "What?" shouts Enkidu, nearly falling back in disbelief. He's been coming to this home to know her for over 3 months. She's never once mentioned that she's taken for another man. "But this is not a Yasion's dwelling. Whose is it?" "I purchased it under my father's name, so that a Yasion would not find out," Taraxime replies. "But I did find out, you witch! I followed you when you disappeared this time," Yasion shouts. "Now that you have found out, I can be rid of you from my life," she replies, her voice cold. "You are going to pay for this crime. I cannot believe my own blood has betrayed me," Yasin growls, his fury still building. "I just found out. I had no idea, I swear to you," Enkidu pleads. "Leave him alone. I want to be with him, not you," Taraxime says, glaring at Yasin. "Whore! Do you not recall that we have a child? Do you truly wish to purge your responsibilities?" screams Yasin. "I have already sent Galen away with my sisters to Dwarka. They will raise him as their own. He will grow up never having to know either of us or this backwater village," Taraxime replies. "Because you have understood yourself to be unfit as a parent, you dare steal that from me? You are an uncaring, self-absorbed man. I do not love you." "You monster!" Yasin screams. "Because of this, I could not look at him and be reminded of my hatred for you." "How dare you do this to me? Return my son!" "No, I could not love him, just as I cannot love you. Enkidu is a better man than you." Enkidu is appalled at the coldness of Taraxime. It is as if she were a completely different person. Before she was gentle and submissive. Now she tears apart Yasin's heart like a wild animal. She did not want a husband or children. She only wanted the freedom to have sex with whoever she pleased. But the restraints of the culture and religion of Katal-Takuk would not allow her to openly express herself in such a manner. Enkidu now puts the pieces together. In the city of Dwarka, they do not worship the same creator god as he, and do not recognize the existence of the Yazata. The religion of Dwarka is of physical worship through orgies, and it's even rumored to partake in bestiality and human sacrifice. How could he have been so blinded by his own loins, he wonders. Master Hoyles had once warned him that a woman from Dwarka would lead to trouble, but he did not heed him. "Return Galen to me now," hisses Yassian. "Never. You will not see him again." "What did I do to deserve this terrible fate? To have my only son snatched from me?" Yassian asks, near tears. "I told you that I did not love you. You should count it as a blessing that I did not dash his head against a rock." Taraxime stands and begins to dress. "You are too self-consumed to ever give me the attention I deserve, and Galen would have only seen your example and grown up like you. His fate is now much better not knowing you. Your studies have always taken precedence over me. I have needs and you could not fulfill them. So I did what I had to do to satisfy myself." Yassian balls his fists and punches a hole through the wall before storming outside. Enkidu follows behind, trying to reason with him. "Wait, cousin, I did not know she belonged to another," Enkidu pleads. Yassian turns around, glaring at his kinsman with hatred. "You are no longer my blood. Both of you have betrayed me, and you do not deserve to live in this world." Yassian growls. "I will make both of you suffer for this." Kishar Realm, World of Halavan. As one of the 2,000 Hashmalan Watchers, the Yazata known as Hoyles uses his acute seeing abilities to maintain a constant vigil on the happenings of the human world. Unlike the Yazatan warriors who live in the barracks on the worlds of their respective choirs, Hashmalan leads a lonely and solitary existence. Imitating the world he watches, Hoyles has populated Halavan with many species of Earth's flora and fauna. He realizes, though, that without humans the worlds are not the same. A Hashmalan is tasked with overseeing a handful of worlds, each with a sentient dominant species of life. As one of the more advanced of his pledges, Hoyles tends to spend most of his time in observation of humanity. Drinking a hot tea, Hoyles focuses his awareness on a volcanic eruption on an island in the southern region of the Earth's Pacific Ocean. The population of the island are few in number and have yet to develop a writing system or any form of higher culture. If the volcano has its way, the islanders will be wiped from history, never taking that next step towards the existence shared by the many human cultures of the world. "Nature is only doing what we are too foolish not to ourselves," a voice says from behind, surprising Hoyles. Blinking several times to return his awareness to his own planet and surroundings, Hoyles finds himself in the company of 6 Yazatan Seraphim, warriors of the 6th Choir, as indicated by all of them wearing the insignia of a 6-winged bird. "Captain Aniel, to what do I owe this pleasure?" "Spare me the false niceties," the Yazata replies with agitation. It's apparent that the Seraphim hold no love for the more pacifist nature of the Hashmalan class. The armor Aniel wears is scuffed and faded from frequent use, and the red sash on his arm marks his rank as a captain. You and I both know that a visit here is not one either of us finds enjoyable. On the contrary, I quite enjoy the company. Doyle sips his tea, concealing a wicked smile. Even company as tightly wound and unpleasant as yours. The traders Cedrion and Gadriel were recently spotted within your jurisdiction by a pair of Fravashis. The book thieves, why have they returned to Kishar after all this time? Hoyles is surprised by this news. It's been over 100 years since the two Grigori were last seen among the humans. Up to their old tricks, I would assume, Enniel sighs. Their previous visits were focused upon giving the humans a taste of the power contained within that stolen text. The monkeys simply cannot handle that kind of power, and are easily consumed by madness and evil. The Book of the Black Earth, Hoyles whispers. They stole that particular text because of the spells contained within. Enniel nods. There are many things that humans should never have access to. Each time the Grigori interact with the human civilization, the world is brought down in ruin. Of that I am familiar. Hoyles thinks on all the destruction caused by men drunk with dark power from the forbidden text. Many times I feared humanity would never recover. We are always too late to stop the Grigori from unleashing their chaos. They treat this as if it were some kind of sick game. We had hoped that maybe you would have spotted the two of them on your world. Had I seen any Grigori, I would have promptly reported such, Hoyles replies. The warner warned by those two not only prevents their presence from being sensed, a watcher such as myself is blind to their activity as well. How unfortunate, Enniel sighs. It seems as though the Sangam designed the warner without flaw. We have followed the Grigori for over 1,000 years and have only come close to bringing them to divine justice a handful of times. They have become adept at moving quickly and throwing us off of their scent. Have the Sangams still not been able to devise a method of nullifying the power of the Warna? Enniel shakes his head. They work tirelessly on the subject, but progress eludes them. What they designed as a protection for our soldiers from assassination by agents of evil has become a bane in tracking down those elements of our own who rebel. Stopping the Grigori will have to fall upon the skills of strategists. Only a proper outsmarting will ensnare our prey. I shall continue to watch as I always do. Should the Grigori slip up and make themselves known, you will be the first to know, Doyle says. See to it that I am, Enniel replies, squeezing his sword tightly in hatred of the Grigori. For all of my brothers they have murdered, it will be my sword that cleaves their traitorous heads. Without any kind of parting words, Enniel and his companions vanish from Holovan in a flash of bright white light. Hoyles returns to his watch, observing the continued volcanic threat, as well as the rise of cultism in and around the port city of Dwarka. A dark cloud hangs over the world, yet Hoyles cannot yet discern the meaning of it. Something grows rapidly in power, fouling the atmosphere, and sending a chill down the Yazda's back. I fear that Cedrion and Grigiriel are the least of humanity's concerns right now, he whispers, worried about the world's immediate future and survival. Iasion sits at a cluttered desk with his head in his hands. How could he have done this to me? I trusted him. I trusted them both. Please, I need help. I need guidance. I have to make them pay for what they did to me. In a flash of white light, a figure appears in Iasion's doorway, using the teleportation art of Shunkonido. Who are you? Iasion asks cautiously. The white-haired visitor brushes his bangs from his eyes and grins. I am the answer to your prayers. Did you not pray for assistance? Cedrion asks, handing him an old tome bound in a strange animal hide. Are you an angel? Before Iasion can finish, Yazata is gone. Iasion opens the book. Chapter 1, Verse 1. Whosoever readeth this book be warned. Do not allow it to be seen by mortal eyes. Whosoever performeth any spell from this book, with evil in their heart, he is damned above all others. forsaken and rejected, tormented and forever shamed. Water will not quench his thirst, nor will bread and meat sate his hunger. Chapter 1, verse 2. Even in death will he not find peace. He will be cursed to walk forever with no solace. Neither heaven nor hell awaits him. The stars shall not shine for him, nor will the sun bring him warmth. He shall bathe in the sea, and yet he shall be tortured by the heat, and feel not the cool waves. Every mark of his body shall itch, but he shall be unable to scratch to relief. Chapter 1, verse 3. Men of all nations shall chase after him with their swords, and no one shall give him refuge. All doors will close, and he shall be left alone in the street. They will beat him, and God shall reward them for their piety. The book goes on into a creation story, an historical account of the rise of humanity, as told through the eyes of a Yazatan Hashmalan watcher. Yassian considers himself a scholar and very familiar with the various myths surrounding the world's creation. In his village, the predominant belief is that a single deity is responsible for everything. In other cities with different cultures, the story is vastly different. He finds this account interesting in that it is not told from the perspective of a man, but from a being observing far off from a great distance away. He continues reading until a certain story catches his interest, more than any of the others. Chapter 76, verse 33. Sain has been judged. For the crimes of treason he has been stripped of all title. No longer general of the second choir, member of the Sarum, or as director of the Aralam archives. He has been sealed away. I shall not disclose the location, for he must remain locked away for all time. Of the original 13,000 that joined in his rebellion, the 4,711 taken prisoner have been banished to the world of Averno in the Kishar realm. Chapter 76, verse 34. 13,000 of our brothers joined Sain. In the war, we do not know how many were felled. It is likely that many have gone into hiding as Grigori deserters. They shall be tracked down and dealt with accordingly. Chapter 76, verse 35. The worlds of the mortals are no longer joined. The free passage between the humans and the Sicarii is not permitted. The loyalists of the traitor Sain must never have access to the human world again. Chapter 76, verse 36. The Sangam sages of the second choir have placed the strongest of barriers to encompass Averno and keep it apart from the world of the humans. 100 levels of protection have been woven into the spell, and no mortal shall ever be able to break through the barrier. Chapter 76, verse 37. Should the time arise that passage to the world of Averno is needed, say these words thrice. What once was, is, come forth. Kukase as e nis yokam. Chapter 76, verse 38. At the sounding of these words, a gate shall open, and allow the free passage both ways between the worlds for a limited time. Heed these words, my brothers. Do not open the door to Averno, lest you doom the Kishar realm. Chapter 76, verse 39. The magics of the Sicarii world may have advanced to be able to keep the gateway open, and it may be impossible to close it back. This counter spell is to be used only with clearance from the Sarum princes, and a representative of the Sangan must accompany any who attempt to temporarily dissolve the barrier. Only a Sangam has the ability to restore the barrier once it has been lowered. Chapter 76, verse 40. Again I urge caution. Even with the permission of the Sarum, it is not wise to lower the barrier for any amount of time. The followers of Sain are not beholden to our laws any longer, and would see to it that all mortal life in the human world is extinguished. The humans have been placed under our care, and we must do all we can to ensure their safety. The only things that I've ever cared about are gone. Let the rest of the world feel my pain, Yassian whispers, resolving to open the portal and bring the Sicarii hordes forth. Enkidu stops walking as he comes upon the large port city of Dwarka. Riddled with guilt, he has traveled for weeks to reach the city, but for him the goal is worth the effort. Lit torches hang from the buildings, extending a welcoming atmosphere for travelers. As a port city, Dwarka relies heavily on travelers from other cultures and cities. As soon as he steps foot into the city, Enkidu is swarmed by scantily clad women of leisure. "Welcome, Burrito warrior. How may we please you during your stay here in Dwarka?" One of the women asks. She is exotic and darker skinned than any woman he's ever seen before. He assumes that the Dwarka ships must bring back women from far-off lands to maintain a wide variety for the travelers. Her accent is thick and curls after each word. He recognizes the word burrita, having heard it used by other traders in the past, as a custom of referring to all strangers as friends. "I am not here to indulge in your city's immorality," Enkidu says, brushing the woman's hands off him. "I have come to reclaim my nephew, so that his soul is not damned by Dwarka's loose ways." A group of men wearing violet robes and elaborate head coverings approach them. "What is going on here?" one of the men asks. "This burrito visitor has insulted our city and refused to know any of us," the exotic woman says. "Do you not understand our customs, burrito traveler? The women are our gift while you enjoy your stay. We find it helps loosen your money pouch for our fine city's other indulgences." "I am not interested. I have been warned that this city is a poison, and my soul must steer clear of its vices," Enkidu responds. "How dare you? You come to our city and insult our ways?" "I care not for your godless ways. I am not here for the pleasures of the flesh. I have come to take my nephew Galen, then depart." "No citizen of Dwarka may be taken against their will," the man says, drawing a short sword that curves back on itself. Enkidu has never seen a blade like this before, but is not worried. No man has ever proved himself to be his equal in combat. He is a citizen of Katal Takuk. The child was taken against his father's wishes to this city by relatives of his mother. I do not require your permission. The man lunges at Enkidu, but he sidesteps and quickly draws his own sword. Enkidu rakes his weapon horizontally with the blunt edge outwards, using the attacker's own momentum to slam him into his waist and knock the wind from him. As the man falls, Enkidu pivots and jabs his sword's hilt into the neck of a second man, just as he reaches for his weapon. The third man manages to draw his sword, but Enkidu steps towards him and strikes the man's elbow and breaks his arm. The man screams in agony and runs, Enkidu returning his sword to its sheath. As the prostitutes flee in terror, Enkidu makes his way through the city. Even late in the night, the streets are lined with vendors from all corners of the world. "You need coffee, Barida?" a tall, dark-skinned trader from the lands far to the south asks, holding up a basket of deep green leaves. "No, thank you," Enkidu replies, walking past the stands. Nearby, cream-skinned men from Jiangshun sell rice and gorgeous decorated jewelry. Men in animal skins from the Far East Islands sell bananas and other fruits. Even men and women as black as the night are represented, selling rare meats and skins from their lands beyond even the Ak and the Atheon jungles. Enkidu is not interested in trade. His only concern is finding his nephew and delivering him from a life of evil. Enkidu finally locates the home of Taraxime's family and moves swiftly inside, taking care not to kill the inhabitants and only render anyone who attacks him unconscious. He punches an older man in the face as he tries to stop him, whom Enkidu guesses is Taraxime's father. He reaches a corner room where a woman looking almost identical to Taraxime sits, rocking Galen in her arms. "No one else needs hurt. Hand me the child," Enkidu says. "You cannot have him," she screams, pulling away. "He is my kin. I cannot leave him to be raised in this immoral society." Enkidu moves towards her, and she glances to the side to see a knife on the floor. Enkidu follows her gaze and intercepts before she can reach the weapon, kicking her in the face and ripping the child from her arms. As he turns to leave, he spots an altar to the snake god Nyarlathotep. He kicks the altar over and departs from the home. Kishar Realm, world of Averno, Narain, capital city of the Central Territory. The world of the Sakari is divided up into 5 territories that each correspond to a geographical location and are held in majority by 4 vicious warlords. The main continent covers a size roughly equal to the square land area of Europe and Asia, including the Middle East, and is divided into the northern, western, eastern, central, and southern territories. The Empire of the Central Territory is by far the most aggressive and boasts the largest populace. The northernmost of the tribes of Averno, called the Sabati, are descended from a group of Yazata Seraphim called the Grigori. The Grigori are known as the Deserters. They were part of the military force of Seraphim during the First War of Falling, thousands of years earlier. This war raged throughout the earth for over a decade as the Seraphim battled a rogue faction of their own brothers. Feeling that conditions had worsened for his fellows as more and more resources became devoted to the advancement of human culture, the Sarum Prince and Archgeneral of the Sarum, Sane, was finally defeated and sealed away in the underworld dimension. Rather than share in the punishment suffered by their leader, many of the Seraphim rebellion fled to Averno and became the Grigori. In Averno, the Grigori integrated with the primitive beings and taught them culture and language. It was after the First War of Falling that the 2 worlds became separated by a magical barrier. The Seraphim victors dealt with the remainder of Sane's forces, and then resumed their work on cultivating the human project. The Northern Territory is a harsh land of mountains and snow. The wildlife are large remnants of megafauna from when Averno and Earth were connected some 20,000 years ago, before the end of the last glacial period. Because of the barrier being erected much earlier, many species of animals that went extinct in the human world have continued to thrive in Averno. The final ice age lasted about 2,000 years, but occurred much more abruptly than previous ones. Combining this sudden climate change with the growing populations of Homo sapiens hunters, nearly all of the megafauna vanished. Herds of large animals still roam the open grasslands of Averno. Unlike humans, the Sakari never engaged in surplus killing, and harvestable populations of large mammals have continued to exist for thousands of years. Mammoths, that the Sakari call Gomphios, rule the north, their only predators being 2 species of large Spelos bear and a cave-dwelling lion they call Machiaros. The only Sakari in the north are the reclusive Sabati. The Sabati do not engage in trade or any other activity with the rest of Averno. Instead, they hide in their cavernous cities, surrounded by their ancient statues and temples. As the snow thins into the Western Territory, more Sakari cities begin to appear. The West is still a cold and ruthless land, but more habitable than the North. The Western lands are known for their game animals, and the Sakari are much less advanced than in the Central Territory. Here they lead a lifestyle that revolves around hunting. Herds of pueblo deer, taino bison, maruchaks, camel-like animals, and eryx and tarpon equines roam the wilderness, along with massive chalico, a cross between a horse and a gorilla. Janju wild boars, Buatumanda anteaters, glyptons, large armadillo-like animals, and agalon ground sloths. The diversity of wildlife in the western lands is the greatest of all Averno. Here they have thousands of different species of mammals, birds, and reptiles. Averno's oxygen content is greater than modern-day Earth's, allowing for the fauna to remain larger than today, much like how they existed before the last ice age. The West is governed by a beast-like Sakari lord named Terra. He rules very loosely, only banding the cities together in times of war or crisis. His capital city, also called Terra, lies along the continent's western coast. To the south, the climate heats as the territory rests just at the equator. Lush jungles cover nearly the entire land, and all of the cities exist within the treetops. Networks of hundreds of miles of wooden walkways and huts constitute the population center of the south, called Abore. The southern Sakari are similar to Aboriginal peoples, relying heavily on tradition and mysticism. They trade with the other lands using the numerous herbs and medicines made from the plants that grow exclusively within their jungles. The southern Sakari have taken on many qualities of the wildlife of their area over the millennia, becoming visual hybrid creatures called Dobidikai. Dobidikai are still Sakari, yet they look much like bipedal forms of various animals. Their society is matriarchal and warrior caste, currently led by a Nikokai named Rikar. To become ruler of the south, there is no line of succession. One must defeat in battle the current leader of the tribes. There's much distrust and upheaval in the south, leading to constant civil wars and tribal infighting. Those loyal to slain leaders tend to fight the incoming regime until none are left alive. Very few of the southern Dobidikai switch their loyalties over to the new leadership, and such, the military forces never grow sizable. The Eastern Territory is the most temperate and even of Averno. The jungles thin into regular forests, while the snow only appears seasonally in the more northern regions. The eastern cities lie mainly along the coast, and are the chief fishing ports. With the exception of the Central Territory, the eastern lands are the most technologically advanced, with their capital being located in the city of Jerusalem. The East also interacts with the Central lands more than any of the other territories, and is their biggest ally. The core of all religious ceremonies exists on the border between the East and the South, both civilizations coming together to worship their religions there. As opposed to the ancestor worship religions of the South, the Eastern lands practice a monotheistic religion, centered upon a being called Amartia. The Lord of the Eastern lands is also chief priest of Amartia, named Ikul Nahur. He is a powerful sorcerer of an old magic that Sakari originally learned when the Seraphim Grigori first came to them as refugees of war. Central Averno is the metropolis of the world. All of the largest cities and 70% of the Sakari population in total exists within this territory. The largest city, called Narain, is built around the castle of Central's king. The monarchy is highly volatile and switches bloodlines through violent coups every few generations. Currently, a noble named Marduk and his wife Inyana rule it. Inyana is the eldest offspring of the former king, and a powerful priestess and sorceress of the Eastern religion of Amartia. Central maintains a large and powerful military force, and devotes great resources to growing and strengthening it. Many of the bigger game animals have been driven out of Central due to their larger populace, and the cities rely heavily on trade for meat and leathers. King Marduk stares at the topographical map laying out across the table by two Yazata, whom the monarchy has aligned with. The terrain is unfamiliar with mountain ranges, lakes, rivers, cities, and entire seas that the Sakari has never seen before or heard of. How accurate is this map? Marduk asks. I will not send my troops into a foreign world completely blind. The generals will need to familiarize themselves with the layout first, then instruct their regiments. The Yazata Grigori named Gadriel gives the king a dirty look and irritation. if his superior were not present. Gadriel would kill the Sicarii for his disrespect, king or not. We would not have brought this before you if it were not completely accurate, the other Yazata, Cedrion, says. Map-making is a simple enough task for beings of our age and talents. Marduk nods, still looking at the map. He points to a cluster of large buildings and temple complexes to the west of the Ayota Desert. This is the largest human settlement in the area? Marduk asks, his finger on the city. That is the kingdom of Levant. And yes, it is the largest city of the west, Cedrion replies. They have roughly 1,800 horsemen and 40,000 foot soldiers. What is a horseman? Marduk asks, looking up from the map. Cedrion sighs, annoyed at having to explain things that he considers to be trivial. Humans use swift, hoofed beasts as their mounts in battle, smaller versions of your Eryx and Tarpon. Marduk laughs. And I will take the sturdiness and loyalty of an Upas any day, he replies, speaking of the large armored reptiles that the Sicarii use as mounts. Horses are fast, Gadriel cautions. The riders of Levant can cover great distances in a short amount of time. Even if you choose to target smaller settlements, they may still be able to come to their aid in time due to these quick beasts. Cedrion nods, agreeing with his subordinate's words. I would recommend a full-scale attack force and burn Levant to the ground. Do not suffer a single human to live. If you raise their largest and most powerful fighting force initially, no one else will pose a threat to your dominion. Disagreeing, the king traces his finger across the desert to a much smaller settlement, comprising of only a few dozen mud brick homes. This is a better target for my soldiers to test themselves against. Here they will gain their bearings in the human world and confidence against them. Benares? They are nothing more than mud farmers. Your soldiers will learn nothing battling weaklings such as they, Gadriel shouts. A scouting excursion is more fitting. None of my soldiers have ever faced a human in combat before. If they prove to be more difficult than you say, I do not wish to incur the losses battling an army of 50,000 men that a siege would create. Gadriel curses, slamming a fist down on the table and crushing the constructed buildings of Levant. Coward! We are handing the humans over to you on a golden plate. Annihilate Levant with your full might, and all the surrounding settlements will fall in line. A skilled force can deliver to their enemy losses at 2-1, or even a 4 or 5-1 ratio. If the humans are better warriors, I could lose up to 70 or 80% of my total military. That is unacceptable. That weakened, the armies of the western or southern warlords would pounce upon us and take control of Narain. The humans are weak. They will not provide that level of resistance, Cedrion reassures. The king's grand general speaks up, having observed long enough. My liege, our soldiers are fierce warriors that have been tempered in battle with the armies of the warlords for hundreds of years, Hoyt says. The humans, Marduk begins, thinking on the words of confidence of his highest-ranked officer. Do they possess a similar kind of weaponry as us? Humans are primitive creatures, Cedrion laughs. They wield sword, spear, and arrow. Those humans who have managed to master metallurgy with our assistance are few in number. The majority of their weapons are crude. It would not hold up to your superior craftsmanship. You have nothing to fear from them. They do not have magical regiments as we have. Cedrion shakes his head. We have purposely limited the humans' exposure to magic. Only a handful of mages exist among their entire population, and even they are nothing compared to priestesses such as your queen. That is comforting, Marduk says, relaxing a bit. Sending a magical regiment against them could do significant damage. The king looks across the Axis Mountains to the southeast of Levant, where another large settlement is marked. What of this one? Would they be capable of coming to the aid of their neighbors? That is the walled city of Jericho. It has withstood many siege attempts. It is heavily fortified. I would suggest crushing Levant and rebuilding your strength before ever attempting to breach their walls. Many of the larger human settlements are protected by walls, but none such as these. Jericho's walls are formidable and created in layers. Even if you breach one, you will have to breach two more in order to reach the city proper. But will they send men out from their city to assist Levant? There is no love lost between Jericho and Levant. The Jerichoites will fortify themselves when they learn of an attack on Levant, and will not come to meet the threat. I have decided, Marduk says. When we emerge from the gateway, we shall strike the nearest city at the edge of the desert. From there, we shall move due east and send scouts to meet the warriors of the next settlement. We shall allow survivors to escape this village to Levant, and warn them of our attack, drawing as many of their 50,000 men out into the desert as possible. Because the numbers reported will only be of our scouting party, they will not be expecting our full might when it crushes them in the desert ruins. Foolishness! Gadriel shouts, pleading with his captain to intercede. What good is our counsel if they do not heed our advice? Patience, brother. Even if they take a more cautious route, the Sakari army will still be able to overtake the humans, Cedron says, trying to calm his headstrong comrade. Elites, like General Hui or Yamura, could conquer a human city single-handed. There's no need for concern. When humanity is overthrown, we shall put a finger in the eye of the Creator and show him exactly how wrong he was in putting all of his faith in such pathetic and evil creatures. The Sakari will rule the Kishar realm, and we will avenge our exile and our stolen honor. Can you guarantee that the gateway will be opened up in convenience to our attack location? Marduk asks. I do not wish to emerge into the center of an army compound, or a bustling city and be surrounded. Cedrion nods. I have made adjustments to the spell contained within the Book of the Black Earth, which I gave to the humans. So long as the spell is activated, I will be able to choose the location of the portal. If you have so much control, why do you not just perform the spell yourself? Why must you rely on a human to perform the spell? Marduk asks. The Yazata still present in Anshar monitor the world for activity by Grigori like myself. Using a spell of that magnitude would turn on a beacon, for which my former brethren could track me. Cedrion thumbs the handle of the sword threateningly. Gadriel and I may be skillful, but even we cannot face an entire choir alone. Marduk understands, returning his attention to the map. Bring us out near Benares, and we shall stage our first attack from there. Your so-called mud farmers will be an adequate test for Captain Rivius' scouting unit.